Greek life, specifically Black Greek life, has found a surge of interest in the past few years. The stepping, the strolling, bright colors, and growing attention through social media presence can be attributed to this, and internet attention starts conversations of praise and controversy alike. Being a member of Greek life, I can say that the impact is seen in more ways than one on every platform, but the attention has been a little bit muddled due to the court of public opinion and open forum. And with everything going on in the world as it tributes to Black people, our culture, our intersections, and everything in between, Black Greek life has found itself as a topic that's arguably so convoluted that the message seems to be lost. Nonetheless, to say that Black Greek-led organizations haven't had an impact on community service, education, political involvement, and culture would be an understatement. The purpose of this video you're watching now is not pro or anti-Greek life, but rather to build a solid foundation that gives more clarity on a subject that many have seemed to join in on the conversation for. For over 2 centuries, scholarship was the foundation and pinnacle for American success. The Harvards, Princetons, and Yales were the example of prestige in the pre- and post-colonial United States. These institutions looked to foster a sense of familial bonding outside of academic endeavors. And this would form the American fraternity, inspired by societies such as the Masons and the Order of the Eastern Star. They found great successes, the oldest being Phi Beta Kappa in the 1700s. And while there was a growth in educational and cultural capital for some, not all would reap the benefits. During the antebellum, Civil War, and Reconstruction period, Black people in particular did not find the same benefits as their white counterparts.
So without the promotion of education, straight from the womb to working, whether it was in the fields in the South, or whether it was in the factories or the industries in the northern part, then people just thought all they could do was work to help with their families so that they can eat, so they can survive. But they weren't surviving, they weren't thriving, they were just surviving. And we know through education that gives us the benefits of the thriving part.
Schools for newly freed slaves paled in comparison to the established schools for whites. It was inadequate to say the least when it came to teaching environments, but it motivated a framework for those who deserved the right to quality higher education. Take this into account from a blog post written by Leigh Soares, where she emphasizes Governor James Alcorn's desire to even the playing field between students Black and white with the formation of Alcorn State in 1871, or in Virginia with the progressive formation of education reform and increasing spending on Black higher education.
The formation of historically Black colleges and universities were the primary mode of furthering educational capital, with the goal of newly freed slaves being able to find the security and being able to have the right to read, write, and think for themselves. And while HBCUs were the primary option, everyone did not find themselves attending them, be it we weren't aware of their freedom, lack of availability, location, or vicinity, or maybe it wasn't their preference. Take the Ivy League school known as Cornell University into account. Located in Ithaca, New York, was founded the same year that the Civil War came to a close. Despite the fact that we had separate spaces for races in higher education, Black people still existed on campus. While Black people were isolated from some of the spaces as their white counterparts, the exposure to fraternal bonding and secrecy sparked an interest for those who desired to build the same bond for the very few that occupied these spaces. In comes the beginning of what would shape Black Greek life to the core.
Drilling in hate. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Alpha Phi Alpha was not always Alpha Phi Alpha, but rather it had humble beginnings as a way to keep the few Black students on campus cohesive. Cornell, despite having black people on campus, didn't do much to keep them. Hence, why 7 Men became the stronghold of educational involvement for young black men.
We were founded because at Cornell University, Ivy League school, there was just so much going on with, there was white fraternities. With 2 of our jewels, worked for some of the houses that they own, like the fraternity houses, and they seen how they got along and how they had people that they belonged to outside of school, cultural, based, and just people that you could always go to, people that thought like you, and people that really you can use to help elevate yourself. And that's really why we just decided to, start a fraternity for black people, founded by black people.
The formation of Alpha made a mark for black fraternal organizations, as it will be the first of its kind to be established in December of 1906. While they were founded on a predominantly white campus, the desire to continue that legacy on the campuses of HBCUs was crucial. They expanded their second chapter to Howard University in 1907. Scholarship was not the only goal. Alpha Men continued their contribution to those outside of the collegiate level through extensive programming. This not only assisted current members, but it inspired the newer generation to find the interest in extending the legacy.
Sure, voteless people, helpless people, engagement in the black community, because a lot of times, we're not voting because we act as if our voices doesn't matter and can't be heard. And I'm guilty of that. My freshman year, I didn't vote because I thought that same thing. So just to see the transformation on perspectives change, and then what being advocates for your community can do for you.
And that legacy was well kept as Alpha framed the groundwork for pivotal moments in society such as athletics and civil rights. Members like Martin Luther King Jr. and Thurgood Marshall are notable figures, but the list is particularly extensive.
Brother Roland Martin, Brother Maynard Jackson.
Jesse Owens was one of the people that made it to the Olympics, and it's so much history, especially Dr. Martin Luther King, just who he is and what he was. He just wanted a better place for us, and Alpha was founded for men like that to have places that they can go and just be themselves.
Our society has placed a stigma on the Negro's color. There are some Negroes who are ashamed of themselves, but don't be ashamed of your color. Don't be ashamed of your biological features. Somehow you must be able to say in your own lives and really believe it, I am black but beautiful, and believe it in your heart.
As Alpha came into fruition, for women, the road seemed to be a little more difficult to trek. Women were not thought to require education, let alone do simple things such as open a bank account at that time. So going to school and creating an organization with the intention to build and further educational capital along with social capital in the early 1900s was almost unheard of for the Black woman. But in 1907, on the campus of Howard University, a woman by the name of Ethel Hedgeman Lyle found interest in creating a sorority for Black women by Black women, and in January of the following year, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority was founded.
So Alpha Kappa Alpha was founded in 1908 on the campus of Howard University in Minor Hall. We have 16 founders and 4 incorporators, so that's where the term 20 Pearls comes in.
She had a support network of like-minded females to progress the agenda to mutually uplift ourselves, our talents, our strengths that we had that we can contribute to society and benefit to the community because we were not getting it otherwise.
While the organization was gaining steam, they faced a few bumps in the road in the early years. But we'll delve into that more later. The impact that AKA had on Black sorority life would be an inspiration to expand Greek life, creating a space that would be integral for Black women to provide an impact on the communities that they existed in. The impact can also be seen in educational efforts through their push to improve HBCUs, where in 2020 they exceeded a $1 million goal to further the longevity of longstanding institutions that house these organizations.
Even though I didn't go to an HBCU, I definitely recognize the importance of HBCUs and their historic significance. So I think that it's great that we're able to continuously, I think for the past 3 years, raise $1 million in 24 hours, and then also help high school students that, aren't too familiar with the college process, engage in college admissions, and end up going to HBCUs.
In the circuit of arts and education, members such as Toni Morrison, Felicia Rashad, and Maya Angelou make great company in this avenue. Alpha Kappa Alpha has also continued to be a force in building Black societal capital by culture and merit. Their motivation to break down barriers can be seen through the years and at some of the highest levels known to American society.
While Greek life began to find a small boom on historically Black campuses with the founding of the Beta chapter of Alphas in 1907 and the Alpha chapter for the AKAs the following year, at another predominantly white institution, the desire to sit together was stronger than ever. In Bloomington, at Indiana University, there were a grand total of 10 Black students on campus. This, partnered with the fact that discrimination was still alive and well, sparked the need to formulate something to essentially be their brother's keeper.
Basically, we were founded Indiana University kind of as a covering for our founders because of the things that were going on at a PWI. It was more of a support, to offer support for Black men that were actually trying to achieve something like that. It's like a capital goal achievement.
Brother Elder Watson Diggs and Brother Byron K. Armstrong, they actually went to Howard. And when they got to Indiana University, that's when they, of course, sought out 8 other men, and they, got together. They wanted to start a fraternity.
In comes Alpha Omega, which looked to foster that community amongst the same marginalized groups that were present on campus. Soon after comes Kappa Alpha Nu, who eventually went through a few evolutionary changes, as the name was thought to have some racist feedback from white peers.
One of the ones was more noticeable, the name Nu comes from one of the names that we had, Kappa Alpha Nu, which we had to change because the KAN, they would say Kappa Alpha and then put the N word at the end. And we had athletes that were some of our founders. So they would be at track meets and they would continuously say things like this. And it was okay, we need to figure something out. And we settled on the side because it was close to the Indiana University symbol. Well, basically the Indiana University symbol, honestly. And it kind of helped bridge the gap a little bit.
This would spark another name change as they eventually became Kappa Alpha Psi in 1914 and continue an integral part of student life at IU and to the community around them and the members who would join soon thereafter. Outside of community involvement, civic engagement as it applies to Greek life extends to Kappa. Members such as Colin Kaepernick are notable in the modern day, but other members such as Ralph David Abernathy, a civilian lieutenant during the Montgomery bus boycotts, sparked what we know today as the Civil Rights Movement. The particular goal to meet for Kappa is achievement, and it's echoed so frequently that it can be found in their own mantra. While Kappa is the former half of 1911, the latter half will find another blossom of a fraternal founding. This time, we go back to Howard. As the year 1911 came to a close, 3 young students and 1 faculty advisor looked to expand Black Greek life to Howard. Omega Psi Phi, the new kids on the block, hit the ground running, looking to make themselves as visible as possible, but not without pushback, as they weren't officially recognized as a fraternity, let alone a national one, until 1914.
Howard University officials didn't initially recognize the fraternity as a national organization And Omega Psi Phi's leadership, refused to accept limited recognition. So as a result, the fraternity operated without, official sanction. And until the university, withdrew its opposition in 1914, and we became incorporated on October 28th, 1914.
Despite all of this, they grew quickly, gaining members among the ranks of Charles Drew, Langston Hughes, and more. Along with notable members, service runs deep, contributing to Black communities during the Great Depression, providing assistance and equal rights to not only Black people seeking employment, but partnering with Black employers as well. Omega also contributed to the preservation of Black history through the formation of Negro History and Literature Week in 1920. Their contribution to civil rights and Black culture played a huge role, with Omega Psi Phi being one of the most dynamic and notable organizations attributed to Greek life.
Voter registration, education, and mobilization, making sure that we get people out to learn about the voting process and getting them registered to vote. We facilitate and participate in activities that uplift their communities through the power of the vote. Mentorship is very key and critical for us. We've partnered with local middle and elementary schools to help instill youths with the principles of manhood, personal social responsibilities in the young African males, and then provide them with the tools necessary for, self-respect and leadership.
And while Omega men were building and changing the dynamics of Greek life for fraternities, sorority life seemed to have something brewing on their own side.
In 1912, the Omegas were having struggles of being recognized as an organization on campus. But in the same breath, the AKAs were having a moment of dialogue with themselves. Remember when I mentioned there was a bump in the road? Well, there were talks going around. Talks that were not in the interest of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Nellie Quander noticed that these talks directly opposed the views of what they looked to reflect on Howard's campus. One of the members who expressed these views was Myra Davis, who proposed the changing of the colors, the symbols, and the mission to reflect that of what was going on at the time, being women's suffrage and the need for political action.
They definitely wanted to be more hands-on in the community, definitely uplifting our community, the Black community, especially during that time where women weren't allowed to vote. So women's suffrage was a very big moment at that point. So our 22 founders and the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at that time decided to leave and birth a new organization.
That organization in question, that would be Delta Sigma Theta. Founded the following year in 1913, not even a few months later, Delta hit the ground running, marching in the Women's Suffrage March in March of the same year. And they kept pushing too, with contributions inspiring hundreds of thousands in the realm of women's rights, human rights, and policymaking. One of the most integral would be Dorothy Height, a woman who wore many hats in her line of service, literally and figuratively.
Dorothy Height is probably one of the most reputable members for me, as she stands out for her actions and commitment to civil rights legislation. She was also the president of the National Council of Negro Women. I'm telling you, the more I read about Dorothy Height, who also served as our national president, I am amazed at not only her impact in our sorority, but just nationally for all.
Other notable Delta women include Alexa Kennedy, the first Black female neurosurgeon, Zakira Muhammad, the first Black gymnastics coach in the Big 12 Conference, and Candace Story Lee, the first Black female athletic director in the SEC Conference. The list grows daily in every field, emphasizing their 5-point thrust. Be it the Distinguished Professor Endowed Chair in Educational Development or Going Red for Women in the realm of physical and mental health, the impact is ever growing. And as Deltas impact many in their line of work, like Violet's, even alone, they tend to stand out.
If your beauty I no longer see, would you leave me, pretty baby? And if I thought it best to set you free, yeah, would you hate me?
Not even a year later, another organization found itself forming on the front lines at Howard. After long talks of formulating a fraternity by Langston Taylor, in January of 1914, Phi Beta Sigma decided to break ground in D.C.
We was founded January 9th, 1914, Howard University. We have 3 founders. We have the Honorable A. Langston Taylor, Leonard F. Morris, and Charles I. Brown. And one thing about Phi Beta Sigma, we are the people's frat. People like to call us. We're about the community service, and we're about the inclusive and not the exclusive.
Before Charles I and another founder came in the picture, it was just one. It was just one of our founders who was kind of coming up with things. Then everybody else came into the fold. So we grew steadily through the years. It wasn't just a huge thing to start with.
Sigma also faced a dilemma when their founders A. Langston Taylor and Leonard F. Morris lost contact with their fellow founder Charles I. Brown, who graduated from Howard and went on to found the Sigma's Delta chapter in Kansas.
Why did he leave? What's going on? Come to find out, he was in Pennsylvania, working in a parish and everything like that, still doing Sigma business at the end of the day, but he just, did his own thing.
Sigma faced unique challenges due to the causes that they seek to assist in, one of which being international issues as it related to the African diaspora, particularly in Haiti, something that not everyone was too fond of at the time. They were so dedicated to the fight to improve quality of life that it is seen in the notable members who've come through the organization. From Congressman John Lewis and Hosea Williams to Richard Sherman, the lineage runs deep. And the choice of initiatives they chose to dedicate their time to creates an even broader impact.
While Sigmas came on the scene, they looked to expand their impact to a sisterhood. 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒏 decided that the market for sisterhood was not saturated and that there was most definitely room for another sorority on campus. And on January 16th of 1920, Zeta Phi Beta came into fruition. And while Zeta Phi Beta and Phi Beta Sigma are the only 2 organizations constitutionally bound, they don't look to fall under the wings of their brothers.
Maybe one thing that kind of gets misunderstood is that we're an organization that just wants to be close with our brothers, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We are not. We are Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. We are very, very strong on our principles, which is scholarship, service, sisterhood, and finer womanhood, and not so much of an organization that just wants to be next to the boys.
In fact, Zeta would continue to prove these sentiments and being the first in many things, including chartering international chapters and forming auxiliary groups such as Amici and the Arcanettes.
They're like, honestly, they're like really our sisters. And we don't like to call them Amici. They are our Amici, they are our friends, but we call them our sisters, the same way that we call each other sisters, those members who are Zetas. A lot of organizations, yes, they have auxiliaries, but we really cater to women that didn't have a chance on going to college and being able to become members. So with that, they're able to partake in the services that we're offering the communities without actually have gone to college and be able to become Zetas.
Zeta also has close ties with the arts, with members such as actress Esther Rolle, known for her role as Florida Evans in Good Times, and Dionne Warwick, an established singer who's won numerous Grammys, and humanitarian efforts, seen in the Live Aid concert, viewed by over 40% of the world's population. And while they've contributed heavily to the arts, you can find them contributing heavily to education, career development, health and wellness, and more. In a way, one could say their contributions are a bit finer. If you're keeping track, we've reached 7 organizations, 5 found on the same campus, and 2 founded at predominantly white institutions. These next 2 are particularly unique as to how much turmoil surrounded them at the time of their founding. While we've been zeroed in at the nation's capital, in Indiana, something has been brewing. I'll preface this by saying that this content is difficult to watch, and if you want to skip this part, you can click on the timestamp here. During the 1920s, the KKK had a moment of revival. Birth of a Nation came out 5 years earlier, and there were millions of members, a third of them being initiated in the state of Indiana alone. It got so bad that they affectionately got an unofficial nickname. This didn't quell a group of young Black educators at Butler University. Sigma Gamma Rho stepped onto the scene as the only Black sorority founded on a predominantly white campus.
Yes, so Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated was founded at Butler University, November 12, 1922, founded by 7 school teachers. So all of our founders were educators.
The influx of Klan activities was so grand that they dubbed the state of Indiana, Klandiana. And they sought out to bring about unity through education because, like I said, all 7 of our founders are educators. So what better way to help reunite the community through education?
They look to continue building, expanding chapters across the country during a time where economic and foreign affairs were the primary focus. These young women expanded their services to the Red Cross, USO, and more. They also made large contributions to the youth. One of these would be the integration of the YMCA in St. Louis and their relationship with USA Swimming to break the stigma of people of color, specifically Black people, and swimming.
First off, the U.S. Swim Association. It's not just the Ohio Swim Club. No. The same one that Michael Phelps and them belong to. It's like, okay. And then on top of that, we had 2 sorors who swam in the 2016 Olympics.
While there are inspirational SGROs in athletics, women of Sigma pride themselves on building inspirational foundations around them.
Some other familiar faces would be, for one, that I'm sure everyone knows about, Sandra Bland, one of my sorority sisters as well. And, once that story made huge news and everything like that, it really impacted me. And I never met her before and just really touched everybody just hearing her story.
Acts of service include the Book Bag Project, SPEAR, Sigma Public Education and Research Foundation, and their own auxiliary, the Philo Affiliates. Their mantra and their desire to serve directly opposes the way of life that the founders lived in decades prior. Hence their motto priding themselves on greater service, greater progress.
8 organizations stood and contributed in ways that are historically ingrained in Black culture and history alike, in addition to civil rights organizations like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the NAACP. But the need to keep going was needed, especially as the years progress. In 1963 alone, the best way to describe the time period is nothing short of turbulent as it applied to the Black population. From the death of Medgar Evers to the publications of letters from Birmingham jail, and the height of the civil rights movement catalyzed the formation of the 9th and final organization on campus of Morgan State College, Iota Phi Theta. Iota Phi Theta was founded with the missions of the civil rights movement in mind, while also considering the evolving representation of the average student on campus. Iota Phi Theta was founded on September 19, 1963 at Morgan State College, which is now known as Morgan State University. So unlike most of the organizations, all of our founders were non-traditional students. So they were 2 to 3 years older than your typical student. Either they already had their families already, or someone's coming back from the military. So these weren't just college kids that you would say just trying to raise something on campus. These were grown men looking actually promote some real change within the Baltimore community. Although their membership was mostly non-traditional, they still made huge contributions on campus and eventually found expansion to additional campuses along the East Coast. Their reach would become so profound that in just 10 years, they reached every region of the United States and acquired distinctive members such as T.C. Carson and Elvin Hayes. Their contributions would prove impactful as well. Being found during the height of the civil rights movement, partnerships with the SCLC, NAACP, UNCF, and more would pull eyes from the NPHC. The council would find so much interest that by 1996, there was a unanimous agreement to add them to the NPHC. Their contributions would not stop there though, as their service continued through this time, as did the membership. And then throughout the years, we have like our IFIP program, which is teaching health and awareness in youth. We also have the IOTA Youth Alliance, which helps mentor young kids in high school and below as well. And just different things. We have a iShield program, but basically helping women as far as like sexual assault and things like that go. While they were the last organization to be founded and admitted to the NPHC, they are the most innovative and unique as it applies to their history and calling to serve. Their desire to build their own tradition and not rest upon one is a sentiment that can be echoed in Black culture and society to this day.
While we're in one of the most pivotal moments in history, what better a time to have a moment of clarity on a topic that's so familiar yet so undisclosed in Black culture? I hope that this brings transparency while educating others on the complexities that is the history, inception, and continuation that is Black Greek life in this day and age. In a world that's ever evolving as it relates to our culture, it's really important that we emphasize and teach how we got to the point we're in today. So in the next part, I'll cover the cultural significance that Greek life has had in TV shows, movies, society, and even other Greeks, along with those touchy subjects that come around with it and why they exist. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tune in for part 2.